Frederick Douglass once said, "Once you learn to read and write, you'll forever be free." Hello everyone, my name is Fadi Isa, and today I will show you guys the negative effects that adult and child literacy has on the country and in the city of Detroit. According to Irwin S. Kish, who authored the book Adult Literacy in America, numerous reports funded by the Department of Education show that a large portion of America's population lacked adequate literacy skills. Illiteracy is a problem that needs to be fixed if we are to create more jobs and economically compete with other nations. Additionally, adult literacy has a detrimental effect on the children of those literate parents. There are many ways to help fix the literacy problem, and I will educate the class about these ways during the speech. Some programs that help fight this literacy problem is a program called Inside Out and Pro Literacy Detroit. I have personally volunteered with these programs, so I can speak with firsthand experience about how awesome these programs are. Now that I've introduced the literacy problem, I will now discuss what exactly literacy is and how it's bad and how we can solve this problem together. There's a big difference between functional literacy and complete literacy. According to Peter Roberts, a scholar in educational policy studies at the University of Canterbury, functional literacy is being unable to utilize reading and writing at a proficient level to contribute to everyday society. Complete illiteracy is an inability to even read and write at all. They cannot read basic words and they cannot write basic words at all. You can tell functionally literate people can read and write, but you definitely notice how they struggle with certain words and how to read in certain areas. To summarize, literacy is bad because it reduces a person's ability to contribute to society. A profound effect also happens to children because they do not have a mom or dad that can read or write, which hinders their educational ability to read or write as well. Because the teacher cannot teach them everything in class, they have to go home to the mom and dad to help them learn new words and help with them with their homework and everything. Now that everybody understands the importance of defeating illiteracy, it is time to analyze what positive effects literacy programs like Pro Literacy Detroit and Inside Out have on the city of Detroit. According to a report by the Detroit Literacy Coalition on December 2011, 47% of Detroiters were either illiterate or functionally illiterate. This came as a huge shock to me because I come from an area in Metro Detroit. I actually commute to school, and usually everyone here is generally literate. You can definitely tell that they can read and write. But if you go deeper into the city, you can tell that definitely illiteracy is a huge problem in the city of Detroit itself. Definitely outside of Midtown and more into Mexican Town and those the western areas in Detroit. I feel that many people don't realize that there's a staggering amount of people who cannot read or write in this country. A positive effect of these literacy programs is how the program fights back against the migration of people into suburban areas. Generally, illiterate areas tend to have people move out into more literate areas and more educated areas because those areas have better wages for their jobs. So if we help increase the literacy rate in Detroit, we can help bring those people back to the city of Detroit so that they don't have to commute to Detroit for their job. According to Pro Literacy Detroit's website, which was accessed by myself on November 27th, 70% of America's inmates are literate. By reducing crime and poverty, Detroit is now a more attractive place to live in, and people will consider moving to Detroit to live there instead of constantly commuting from other areas like Livonia or Dearborn. Pro Literacy Detroit also helps employ residents of the city because they can now read at a proficient level and are now eligible for an assortment of jobs. Donald Hirsch, author of Overcoming Adult Illiteracy, mentions that a common complaint employers have is that many employees lack basic and simple reading skills. This poses a challenge in the workplace and could lead to that employee being fired, which would increase welfare dependency. Now that I have talked about the positive effects of pro-literacy programs, it is now time to look at more real-world examples. For example, without these literacy programs, success stories such as UV Irby would not be possible. In an article published by the Los Angeles Times on January 5th, 2011, they talked about how Irby is illiterate and had to quit school with a 9th grade education because he had to support his family after his dad lost a leg and his mother became terminally ill. After working physically demanding jobs his whole life, Irby decided that enough was enough and he wanted to become literate in reading and writing English. After 3 years of hard work with Pro Literacy Detroit, Irby can now read Bible passages and even reads children's books to his son. It's important to realize that illiteracy is intergenerational. If adults are illiterate, then their sons and daughters will definitely become illiterate because they cannot talk to their moms and dads when they need help with their homework to read and write. Irby is breaking this trend by becoming literate and by teaching the new generation of Detroiters how to read. His ultimate goal is to obtain a GED, and without literacy programs, Irby and his family would remain in a poverty-stricken job and would work minimum wage jobs just to pay the bills. Furthermore, I recently volunteered at Inside Out, which helps educate children in Detroit public schools how to read and write, and hopefully maybe someone in the audience can help them out, can help volunteer for their organization. Their office is located in the second floor of State Hall, which is at Wayne State, and I personally helped edit and publish these poems in this book. This is a visual aid, and hopefully you guys can see the great work that me and a lot of the volunteers have done to help publish and get the opinions of these children out. There are a bunch of poems in here, and the children definitely enjoyed writing these, and they actually gained a further love of reading and writing poems after we helped volunteer with them. To conclude, I talked about literacy, the positive effects of literacy programs like Pro Literacy Detroit and Inside Out, which helped publish this book for these children. And I also talked about real world examples like UV Irby, who helped educate himself after dropping out of the 9th grade, and to help educate his children about how to read and write. Confucius once said, "No matter how busy you may think you are, you must find time for reading or surrender yourself to self-chosen ignorance." It's frightening to think about how many people are unable to form educated opinions because they are illiterate. They cannot vote. They cannot vote for their educational opinions because they do not understand what is being talked about in these educational debates. Now is the time to help them read and write so they can reform their life and achieve something they could never do while they were illiterate. Thank you for listening to the speech.